What I'll try to do today is I'll try to give you my approach of the story from different angles that we Israelis are looking at. And again, I think that the only difference I have between us is I think you hear more news than I do. Like all of you can give like a full on like detailed, they said this, they said that, he said this, I said that. The only difference is I want to try to share from the Israeli perspective, but not what we think, what we hear, because there are many claims and reporters and just thinkers that give a lot of different approaches to this deal. And above all things I can say is that Israel's media, Israel's people are shocked. They are shocked because for the first time we hear a different tune, a different music to something that was so mundane. We always heard the same conversation over and over again, how we need to give up the land, how we need to fold, how we need to do this, to release that. And for the first time ever, we hear a different tune, a different approach, different thoughts that and we're all surprised and excited to the extent that I think many people are looking at this and like they can't believe what they see and what they hear. And what I want love to do today differently than usual, I always say I will do that, but then I carry away and talk too much. I want to hear you guys. Like you are, as I said, you're knowledgeable. You hear a lot of things, and a lot of the things that I haven't heard myself. You hear different ideas, and a lot of the people write to me and tell me, you heard this, you heard that. So I would love to try to hear some of your thoughts and really try to grab the story from all directions. And I don't know if you saw my recording, but I think it's a beautiful story that really says it all. And what President Trump did with bringing up the idea of moving the Palestinians from Gaza, we know was extraordinary. It was extraordinary because for the first time we heard an original thinker and surprising everybody, including Netanyahu. Apparently told them about it just a couple of minutes before they went on to this press conference. And you hear Trump saying what he says, and in the beginning, as Netanyahu said, you scratch your head and it's like, did he really said that? Like, what? And then you think about it and you're like, it makes perfect sense, right? Because we've been witnessing decades already of terror. We see decades of a terrorist land getting funded not by producing anything, but basically the world aid and how the world contributes billions of dollars to build the city over and over again. And we see they use their money to build tunnels, to build missiles, to just to do bad things. And every parent knows that comes a time when the way you behave is just not normal. You need to move away. You need to go to your room. You need to, excuse the table because you cannot stay the way you stay. And I think the people of Gaza, more than anything, and I think he said it very really nice, really true, they are occupied by their own leaders of Hamas, which they are playing them, they're using them. And we know we talked about it many times. They're using them to show a point. They don't care if they die. They actually stop them from escaping places just because there's a lesson to be learned from you see all the people that are dying here. This is an orchestrated cinema of the Palestinians playing the poor and miserables for many, many years. And as much as we look at the situation and we feel sorry, Donald Trump said one time, for the first time ever, and I'll say that just before in brackets, Israeli thinkers already thought about it, including politicians. And you know what happened? In previous elections, I'm talking about 15 years ago, I'm talking about 20 years ago, when they said this is an option, they were disqualified from running to the government. Literally, there's election, and before you go into election, there is like maybe a judge or something that looks at all the things you said in your agenda. If you are calling to transferring Arabs, Palestinians from their areas, it was against the law and it was something that they were disqualified to run to elections. I'll mention two names. Google this after that because if you're surprised, it's shocking. But the first and famous one that was already murdered actually was Rabbi Meir Kahane. Rabbi Meir Kahane played in the 80s and the 90s. He was a rabbi. He moved from the US. He was one of the leaders of the fight against the releasing the Soviet Jews from Russia. Moved to Israel and just very, very honestly said the truth about the enemy, about the Arabs, about Palestinians, sometimes in a brutal way. I'll say that, right? It was sometimes very brutal about how he talked about the Palestinians. He never lied. But he was disqualified and he could not run to government. And another one is Michael Ben-Ari. He is a doctor, expert in archaeology, made a lot of effort basically writing a book. I bought this book. It's just this big that really explains all the philosophy of Islam and their fight against Judaism, against Israel. And basically he said the same. Maybe the idea to move Arabs, Palestinians from their area would be a solution because maybe that's the way you should do it. He was disqualified again. Now, these are people that only said it. Now, the president of the strongest nation in the world, who already goes and plans it and talks about Egypt are going to take, Jordan are going to take. Um, Journalists in Israel already gave a couple of other countries like Morocco and the area of Somalia. They're literally like they're talking about a plan, and you hear it, and it blows your mind. But this is the first time it was made, it was said, and people are saying to them, "Wow, this is really a plan." So I was saying that it reminds me of a story. And the story goes as follows. So one, if you heard my video, you're going to hear it again. Never mind. It's good to repeat because it's a strong story. One of the biggest rabbis of 100 years ago was named the Chafetz Chaim. Literally means one's life. Comes from the verse, the one who wants life is going to keep his tongue. From the book of Psalms, Chafetz Chaim. He wrote a book about the laws of clean language, meaning not to gossip, not to say bad things about people. That's like his most famous book. And was a very righteous rabbi, and he was the rabbi of town, but also, like many others rabbis in the old time, today it doesn't happen so common in Israel. In the US, we have some of this. They work as rabbis in Shabbat and they learn and they teach, but they have a day job. They go to the office, they work, they finance their life, and then they teach and they learn in their spare times. I know it's funny because today it looks like a rabbi is this is his job. He's a rabbi. He's teaching. He's learning. But it wasn't always like that, and we read about it in many places that people were working. Anyway, this rabbi had a grocery shop, and the best thing about a grocery shop is that you control when could it be open and when do you close it. And the story is that's the historical story that he would open every day. He knew how much he had to gain just to make a living. He would open for a couple of hours, he would sell whatever he sells, and then he would close it. That's the story of the rabbi. So one day, a guy comes and argues with him about something and really yells at him and criticizes him, the rabbi, right? So one of the students of the rabbi comes to him and, whispers in his ears and says to him, cautious of the way you speak to him. He's a really holy person. And the guy is like already very upset and he's like, how is he holy? What's his story? What he like, look at the way he behaves and whatever. He says, no, he's a real holy person. I'm telling you. He says, give me an example. I said, I'll tell you a story. It's a story inside a story. So he has a grocery shop, yeah. And one day he lies in bed in the afternoon, having a nap, and he hears burglars going into the store and like thieves to steal products, money, and whatever. And of course, we know in the Ten Commandments, which we actually read this week, you shall not steal. It's a well-known ritual, right? Makes sense. So he doesn't want them to be thieves and to steal. So he opens the window of his home and he yells, everything in the shop is for free. Free of charge. You can take whatever you have it. Then, even if they're going to take products or money, they're not going to be thieves. They're not going to be stealing officially because it's free. A person looks at them and says, come on, what is this fake story? Like, who does that? It doesn't make any sense. It's not that holy. So the student looks at him in his eyes and says, you know what? Let's say it never happened. Would somebody ever tell a story like it about you? Meaning, sometimes, and I think that's what Trump did, he claimed on such a high note and he gave some crazy ideas that even if they won't happen the way he predicts here, the bracket is already so high, so we can close here. Sometimes the offer is so mad that even if it's not going to go all the way, there's going to be some radical moves here about moving or giving in options for people to move and change locations. And we saw already reactions from the Gazan street. And people are saying in Gaza, he's going to transfer us. Just tell the Hamas to open the gates. Tell Egypt that we can run away. Give us a way. You don't need to transfer us anyway. Just give us an option to leave this gate. We are locked here. We are blocked here. This is not a place to be. And he said it very, very nicely. This is not a place to build. And now people look at the situation from both directions. They look about, people claim and criticize him, always talking about like finance. He wants to build hotels there. Come on, really? You think from all the world, he chose this piece of land to develop his real estate dreams? He doesn't need any of it. He just wants to give a future to an area that was already, there were dreams in the past about making it Singapore. The dreams before that we evacuated Gush Katif, we left Gaza in 2005, and the claims that Gaza will be the new Singapore were there. I remember when you leave it to their hands of the Hamas, you know for a fact what will be the result. You cannot change and you cannot move it. They will continue the circle of events and devastation is going to happen over and over again. And now immediately in the last 2 weeks, you see big moves made by him, not only in the Middle East. I'm thinking that all the countries around us probably understand that the man means business. Look at Canada, look at Mexico, look at Panama, look at Colombia. I'm not going to go to each and every story. You remember stories where there was a conflict with what he thought, and immediately the country said, no way. Who won? Who folded? Who was able to make a big change? I really believe that what we're looking at is nothing less than a miracle. And thank God it's in our sight. Now, with all that said and done, we have a problem. And this is where I want to bring you the Israeli perspective. And the Israeli perspective, unfortunately, is not what Kim started to say today. In his announcement, Prime Minister Netanyahu doesn't go all the way to say if they're not going to be all the hostages are back home on Saturday. We will go and we're gonna fight. He only talked about the next couple of people that were there. Why can't we go all the way in and take advantage of what we see with President Trump giving us? I will ask another question. 4 years ago, there were already conversation about annexation of Judea and Samaria. They were attempting the Abraham Accords to give us the land. Why didn't we say yes to that? Why didn't we say yes now to the deal or to whatever he proposed? What's going to happen? The hell that's going to happen on Saturday. More than that. In a couple of hours ago, I don't know if you saw it already, he was asked, what about Judea and Samaria? Did you see? He was asked today, a couple of hours ago, what about Judea and Samaria? He said, we will fix it. We will fix it. It will be fine. You see, gates are opening, opportunities are presenting themselves. Big, major things are happening, and yet we cannot say yes and we don't seize the moment. And I want to ask you, and I want to try to reflect about why. Why are we being offered all of this and we still don't get it and we don't take it and we go all in? No, any thoughts before I give my approach? Why don't we take advantage? Joyce wants to give an answer. Please, it's Paul.
Yes, it's me. Uh,
Why don't we say yes? Why don't we get it, take it with two hands?
so, several things that you sparked in this conversation. The first is, do you expect that there'll be pushback from the courts on this in Israel when it becomes due? Secondly, is it true the report that the U.S. aid that Trump is trying to stop supported the pre-October 7 judicial reform protests? Is that common knowledge now in Israel that is being reported? Um, and what about the pay for slay thing yesterday that they eliminated supposedly? Um, so that's a back burner one, but um, is there going to be pushback again from the courts? Is the main thing.
So, Paul, is your answer is that we're not saying yes to this because of the courts. You're asking a question, but basically you're giving an answer as well. So I want to go with what Paul said, and I think this is like one of the main issues that we're dealing with right now. And this is something that for an American, I think it's like one of the biggest differences that you have and we don't have. Unfortunately, we do not have constitution. And therefore, whatever the Supreme Court is ruling and aiming for is going to happen. Now, I want to share a story. It's a minor story. It happened a week ago in Israel. You probably never heard about it because it doesn't make any sense. And the story is that in the last year and a half, since the beginning of the war, and you remember what Paul already talked about, you remember the demonstrations about how we need to change the Supreme Court. Just in one sentence, the claim was this is a system that a friend brings a friend. So all of them look the same, they think the same, they're being chosen the same way. And that means that even though, the nation is leaning to the right, the Supreme Court is still leaning to the left. And we cannot change it because the way the system works is new judges are going to be elected based on the people that are already sitting there. Okay, so that's the form. In the last year and a half in Israel, how do you choose who's going to be the president of the Supreme Court? Seniority. The person who was sitting there the most is going to be the next president. And the person who was elected to be, his name is Amit. This is the new Supreme Court president. Now we know his opinions. For a year and a half, we wanted to wait to see if we can do something about it. And 2 weeks ago, in a very small meeting with a couple of other Supreme Court judges, he was elected to be the president against what the justice minister wants, the prime minister wants, and all of Israel. They don't want it, but still he is going to be under control. And what it means is that still everything that happens in Israel is going to be under the influence and under the judgment of the same group of people that we know what they think. They are liberals, they are leftists, they want still to be a nation like all other nation, and they don't understand the story. And this is exactly, if you ask me, the difference of what happened in the US in this last election. It's the difference between the liberals who think they know everything and the people. The people have good instincts. The people know what they need. They want power to the country. They want to stand on their pride. They want to stand to what they, their belief system. In Israel, it's the Bible, it's the religion, it's the tradition. In America, America stands on a lot of big, big, you know, traditions as well. But these liberals are trying to do everything to wipe everything out and try to open this new government, a new country that represents all the nations and all the globe, and everybody is equal and everybody is the same. And it just cannot be played the way it is. And unfortunately, every move that happens in Israel is still under the control of the Supreme Court. And whenever Israel wants to pass a law, they're still afraid. What will the Supreme Court will say? We cannot move. We cannot make any law pass without the Supreme Court approving it. So yes, there is a big problem that even if things could be this better, we still have the Supreme Court saying it out loud. But there's another challenge that Israel has. And of course, you in America, you know it as well. And this is the media. We still weren't able to solve it. But 99% of the media, of what the people hear on the news, is always against Bibi Netanyahu, against Donald Trump, against everything. And I'll share with you. It was so funny. So I watched it live. It was midnight at night in the press conference last week, where President Trump stands there and say, "We can find a solution. We're gonna move the people from Gaza." Now, all the people in the studio are shocked. The truth, everybody was shocked. Everybody was surprised. So after they closed their jaw, what's their first comment? They didn't say, "Wow, what an original thought. Oh, we never expected it to happen." No, this is what they said. They said, "Yes, but listen, he knows it's not normal. There's no other way. You know what others are going to say, what are the Arab countries are going to say, what the Palestinians are going to say." They try to make everything move away. They cannot stand with the reality for just a minute. Listen, this is an original thought. Say that. Then we're going to talk about what all the others are going to say. But immediately, everybody was so negative. Everybody went against. Everybody said the opposite. That's what we're facing. And from that moment until now, open the news in Israel, everybody's against it. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He surprised his own country. Look at what Jordan says. Look at what Egypt says. Look at what the Russians are saying. Now, this is brainwashing. And now the common person who started and felt amazing about this new approach, new idea, original thinking, now, after being brainwashed in so many ways for 2 weeks, you know what happens? Uh, it's not gonna happen. It's too good to be true. Oh, we will face many problems, many challenges. Maybe, of course we will. Of course. But the fact that you cannot even think for a second and to face this new reality and embrace it, it all goes back to that point. And from that, I want to say something and I want to try to predict what we're going to face, because everything I said until now was the news. This is what you heard about. Some people say it's positive, some say it's negative. But I want to point out something, and unfortunately, it's going to be recorded. So we can go back to this moment and to hear it. I want you to reflect for a second with me. So now let's put it this way. Let's say Gaza's story is gone. I mean, what we did there, we took out a lot of the troops from the new roads we were taking over. This was part of the first stage of the deal. Lebanon is already done. Hezbollah is done. There's nothing to do there. Syria, we're sitting there. By the way, on Sunday morning, I went to the Hermon mountain. It's closed. Civilians cannot go into the Hermon mountain. It's a border now. Unfortunately, and I say it with very heavy heart, the next story that's going to be unfold is the story of Judea and Samaria and the story of the Jordan Valley. Just look at the map and you will get it. If the north is closed and the south is closed, you have two options. Number one is the east, Jordan. And the second half is the fact that hundreds of terrorists were released in these new deals, right? When all the hostages came back home, we released hundreds of terrorists. You know where they went? Here. There are new neighbors. I'm talking about terrorists that already were sitting in jail for terror attack for killing people. They were released back to their villages and to their towns and their cities here in Judea and Samaria. So what happens? We know already. In the Gilad Shalit deal, when 1,000 terrorists were released for one person, one soldier, in the surveys and the information we know that 85% of them went back to terror. I'll repeat it, 85%. It doesn't mean that 85 went to commit a new terror act, but they were involved in terror, in funding, in teaching, in orchestrating, in planning. Now you send to Judea and Samaria hundreds of terrorists. You are blocking the way in Gaza with hundreds of soldiers, and Lebanon with thousands of soldiers, in Syria as well. What do you think is going to happen? Number one, Judea and Samaria. Number two, Jordan Valley, coming from the Jordan area. Number three, Eastern Jerusalem. It's hard to believe that hundreds of terrorists were released as well to the eastern side of Jerusalem. And what do you think they're doing right now? They're embracing freedom. They see themselves as winners. They went back home celebrating, and the next day you see it. They publish it. They don't even hide it. They're celebrating in their homes with their families, with the winning sign and saying, we won, and we're going to do it all over again. And if it's not going to work, we have the best plan now. And that's the way it's going to go. You tell me, if the Hamas was able to release hundreds of his people from jail, what stops them from doing the same over and over again? This Shabbat, my son read a book about the Entebbe operation. You remember how, I'll ask him just a second. נווה, כמה טרוריסטים, כמה הם רצו לשחרר במבצע אנטבה? או כמה טרוריסטים הם ביקשו שהם ישחררו? כן? לא 431? You see, I need to ask him about history lessons. My son, he's 11 years old. So we read this book on Sabbath and he expressed this. in the Entebbe, they hijacked a plane. They brought it into Entebbe and they wanted to release their people. Is not sure, something around the 400, 500 terrorists were supposed to be released to release the whole plane. If somebody can check it really fast, what was their claim? How many terrorists they wanted to release the whole plane? Israel said no and sent their best units to Entebbe and were able to release all of them. Of course, we know Bibi Netanyahu's brother was killed in the operation. First step, no hostages will be released for terrorists. Years later, we come to the extreme with Gilad Shalit. One soldier, 1,000 terrorists. Why? Because of pressure, because of demonstrations, because of the media, because of the Supreme Court, because of the people on the street yelling, release him now. Sounds familiar? Because right now, in 2024, hundreds of hostages are being returned to Judea and Samaria in the name of a couple of hostages. Now, we are all sympathizing with the fact that people come back to their home, to their family. We love it. We're happy. Yes, Kim, you have the numbers?
We have the numbers. It was 103 hostages, and they wanted 53 terrorists
$5 million.
and $5 million and $5 million.
$5 million is nothing. Give them $5 million. But how much?
Right.
How many?
53 terrorists for 103 hostages. So yeah,
I need to
which
tell them.
that's what it should be. That's what it should be.
נווה, 55 מחבלים ל-101 ישראלים. זה הכל.
He said,
And that's an amazing deal, and we said no.
Yeah.
Now we're paying the same
Hundreds
for
of
one,
terrorists for one
for
hostage
one, for two.
that they've not taken care of. This is the part that, as the world should be up in arms. Like,
That's what I wanted to
where
say.
is the Red Cross? Where
That's-
is the UN? Where is all of these humanitarian people seeing these hostages coming out of almost 500 days of absolute horrific, unimaginable situation, and no one is saying a word. No one.
At this time,
It's not right.
this group, the 3 last prisoners from this Saturday, came back Holocaust survivors. They were held on the same room underground all this time, didn't see sun, were starved, were given the bare minimum not to die, not more than that. In awful condition, they were tortured in there and they're being released. They barely stand there. And again, once again, with the ceremonies of disrespectful situation with big signs in the back that says, we are here to stay, or whatever they wrote over there. And this is what we need to witness and we need to see. And that's what I'm trying to say. After everything we went through, how come we still have people in Israel and outside of Israel that look at the situation and still don't get it? They still don't understand what we're dealing with. They don't understand what we're facing, and they don't understand the way we need to treat our enemy. So, what we saw in the last couple of days with Trump was really a natural reaction. It was a natural reaction of a natural, normal human being to see suffering, to see injustice, to see Holocaust survivors in the year 2025 being released, to see dead men walking. That's the word that you need to say.
Yeah.
And we're looking at all of this and we say, until where and until when we need to suffer all of this. So with that, we have plenty of time. I would love to hear your approach, your question, your thoughts. Enlighten us, please. Share what you can share with us, what that you heard, or questions, or anything else you want to say.
One of the things that I've always struggled with is in the Bible when God would tell the Jewish people, the Israelites, to go in and absolutely eradicate an entire people group, right? Men, women, children, animals, no one alive, nothing, leave no one, right? And as humans today, we go, well, that's a little harsh, right? But seeing this depravity that goes so deep into a society, like we question, how can a society be so bad that there's no good to be found in it? I think we're seeing it in our day. That's just my take. Rachel, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. It's so heartbreaking. Everybody said the same. There was so much of the same when President Trump said that he was going to move the embassy to Jerusalem. It was the same. It was negative. I was there. I was invited. I sat there. And everybody was going to say, oh, the country's going to burn down and the Gaza, and it was great. It was beautiful. It was peaceful. And the same nonsense that went on in Gaza, it was nothing new. And it was a beautiful day. Then comes, oh, the negative. He'll never get all these Arab countries together. It's impossible, until we saw him do the sword dance. And then when I was actually, helpful in getting some of these people to where they had to go in Dubai, actually. But it happened, and it stayed with, and it's actually still holding in spite of everything that has transpired. So the future with that is, I just don't question, because when you see the behavior that has worked, let's give it every opportunity. Of course, I come on a different journey because I grew up in Caracas. I grew up in Venezuela. I've seen this show before in the United States now happening, and what's happening everywhere. But all I can say is that miraculously, just a few weeks ago, our former ambassador, Rick Grenell, who was amazing, he was in Venezuela and came back with some of the prisoners, of United States prisoners that were held there. Isn't that a miracle? So we just have to have hope. Let's have trust. And it is certainly better than nothing that has been happening over the past 4 years. With all due respect to everybody and everybody's political whatever, there's hope now. Let's give it a chance.
Rachel, I agree, and I would say that we already were witnessing these big changes and moves in the Middle East. We saw it, and we saw it with Americans holding in Japan, and we saw it in Germany. Country comes, invades a country for a couple of years, changes the education from the beginning, change the back of their mind. Something changes. Japan is a great example, a place that was radically against everything that represents America. And after years there, things have changed. So things can change. We believe in change. And as you said it, you saw it in South America, meaning it happened. It's not something that is reinvented in the world. Countries, regions can change. No, it happened in the past. It can happen in the future. We already claimed for many years, oh, there's no options around it. Who said so? And now I think for the first time, Trump is saying something that we didn't make it as an option, but it's an option. It's an
So we
option.
have
It
to
can
lose.
happen. And as you said, even when we were so afraid for what the world will say after the embassy, nothing. It happened, and nobody said a thing, and it's a fact now.
Actually, other countries jumped on board and also moved their embassies. So it was the beginning of a trend.
A move.
Then that was, a shame. And of course, our run as Jews, well, we had a good run, I guess, between the Holocaust and now. And now it's reared its ugly head, and now we have to make sure it doesn't happen again. And we all have to put every effort forward in that regard. And we want to thank our Christian friends who are amazing, our American, United Statesian Christian friends who have been standing with us. That is a message that must be sent out, because where would we be without that for such a time as this?
Always, this is what we do here. We're Christian friends of Israeli communities. These are the friends, of course.
100%.
Yeah,
But they
Paul.
need to hear that. They need to hear that, because it's not an easy message. It's not an easy idea to jump on board with. It's not. And it's just, I hope everybody knows that a day does not go by that I don't think and say in my tefillot, in my prayer, to watch over and protect our Christian friends, because where would we be without you?
Beautiful message, Rachel. Thank you. Paul.
Amen. It will be nice to see Kim and Sandra in Dallas the end of this month, and to see all those Christian Zionists in one place. Shmuel, there's a IDF report that Joyce told me about, and then I heard something from Avi Abelo, the same thing, that 40 to 50% of the Palestinians want to move. Have you heard the same thing? Is that common knowledge in Israel?
If the IDF said so, we need to believe that. But I just gave one comment of a person that I heard him saying, you don't need to transfer us. We will do it. Give us an option to go. When you see the videos from Gaza, you understand what Trump said was really real. This is a war zone there. It's been devastating what happened there. Ruined houses, no future. They are stuck there for years. They want to leave. They want to go. They have options. They're young. Immigrants is something that can bring a blessing in a place that is needed. And that's the reality. That's the truth. And immigration is not something new. We as Jews, I can tell you, we did it. We are doing it, and we're probably going to do it in the future as well. When there's an opportunity and when there are young people who want to see a brighter future somewhere else and where they live is not a good place, they are moving. I've shared it in the past. I come after 4 years in Hong Kong. I used to live in Hong Kong for 4 years. And this is not a classic, people moving to Hong Kong is not something normal. But you grab somebody and say, "What are you doing here?" He says, "I come from a very bad place. I don't know, maybe South Africa." I remember one of my friends. He's from South Africa. He says, "I don't know Hebrew yet. I need to move now from my home. This is an option. This is future. It brings me hope. And it's a place that's going to receive me well." So it's not far-fetched to believe that people would love to have a better option somewhere else. And I would say something interesting that I read the other day. Jordan and Egypt are the main places that talk about like accepting them. But somebody brought a very interesting point. There's a huge country in the region that is eager for immigrants, have a lot of business and industry, and sounds like a very good friends of the Palestinian Authority. I'm talking about Turkey, and they're not on the list. That's a very interesting concept. And they're now pressuring and thinking about, I will join. You're like, you're always with them, right? Here, we have options here. You have industry, you have businesses going. If you want, you have people here that are eager for a better future. And you know what? Honestly, I really hope they're going to get a better future. They deserve it like any other human being. They're being trapped there by their own governments, and I wish would they have the freedom to allow better future for their children. Absolutely.
Once again, I think that the world needs to stand up and understand. I mean, to me, this was the brilliancy of Trump's what he said was for the world to recognize that those countries stood up and said, no, we don't want them. So that has got to be telling, and that has got to say something to the world of, well, why don't you want them? Why don't you want to import a bunch of terrorists? Big surprise here. So sadly, hopefully those that can get out and that do want better for their lives and that want to leave terrorism behind, they can get out. But sheesh.
Alan, we have another question, another comment.
It's not Alan, really, it's Jane.
Hey, Jane.
Hi. And I'm not from the States either.
What are you doing here?
Well, I was invited.
Of course.
Absolutely.
You're welcome.
Hey, it's a decent time of day, so go for it.
You're welcome.
Actually, I'm from Jersey, not New Jersey, original Jersey, and I suspect most people on this call don't even know where it is.
It's in the Channel Island, isn't it?
Correct. We are in the English Channel, and Mr. Trump wants to rename us.
Oh, What is he
I can't
renaming us
remember
to?
the George Washington's. No, something weird, something American. He doesn't want us to be the English Channel anymore.
Well, you know.
Hey ho. My question
My
is,
theory on this is that he's causing so much chaos with the renaming that it's taking people's attention away so that he can get stuff done. That's what I think he's doing.
Nice
Because
point.
it's silly. It's ridiculous. It's silly. But it's catching people's attention. I don't know.
my question is, I don't understand why we don't hear from Israel. I do understand that everywhere else in the world wants to forget because they want the two-state solution. But why don't we hear from Israel that actually Israel came out of Gaza to give it to the so-called Palestinians for peace, and this is
Yep.
what they've got? Why don't we hear from Benjamin Netanyahu and his government and all those speaking on behalf of Israel? Actually, it didn't work. So why are you even talking about it? I don't understand why they're silent on it.
I don't think they're silent. I think that this is one of the biggest and most painful realities that we've been sharing for so long. We were trying to explain all the efforts we had to make this area, this territory blossoming. I always say I was a soldier in 2005, and my friends were taking and were asked to take our brothers and sisters, physically push them out of their homes for hope for a better future. And I always say that, we did it with tears in our eyes, but there was one hope that maybe something good is going to come out of it. And billions of dollars, investments from all over the world to build a new city. And indeed, they've built a new underground city. It's one of the biggest lessons we've learned in time. How much we did, all the effort we did, and what we got back. So I don't think we're silent about it. The only thing, as you said in the beginning, people tend to forget and they want to forget. Because if really they would look at the reality of what we went through in Israel from the beginning of our modern day history till this point, the 7th of October, it's a no-brainer. It's not even a question. It's not something that even to consider. It's a one-way sided story. We did everything possible to bring peace, quiet, peace of mind. It's our bad, by the way. That is a good thing. This is what we wanted. We did walls after we gave them the land. We invested in them. We gave them suitcases of money. We did everything possible to make them silent, to make this calm, to make it go away, to chill. You get what you need, you get what you have to, and everything is going to be fine. We were wrong. We were wrong, and we made a huge mistake, which we paid it in the most expensive lesson on the 7th of October. So I absolutely do think we said everything possible about it. The issue is that how much more can be said? It's already, the world looks at that and they sides differently. They decide to judge us, to say that we are the bad people. And I'll tell you the strongest lesson I've learned. If after the 7th of October, people can still criticize what we do, that tells you what the world thinks about Israel and what the world thinks about reality and honesty. They don't care. They are being brainwashed by TikTok, by horrible images of babies, and they forget everything we went through the 7th of October. And you know what? Just before the meeting last week with Trump, somebody said, I don't know if it's true, maybe you can correct me or not, that one of his advisor told him, before you meet Netanyahu, you should watch the censored 44 minutes famous video.
I heard that.
Yeah, it's not a video that any of us saw. I got a 7 minutes preview of that. I couldn't stand for 3 minutes. So I will say this. While we are guarding the security of our people and all the horrible things that really happened, the world didn't see. They are using the casualties, the babies, the bad images against that, and they're doing it wisely. And we stand here still trying to defend our pride, to explain the world, to explain everybody that is willing to hear. This is what we do. This is the plan. This is what we went through. This is the reality. The world doesn't want to hear. And I really want to connect to what Rachel said before. Thank God that still we have our good Christian friends around the world who care to listen. And it's not only that they care to listen, they share it, they follow it, they tell others. And I think the influence that our people is bringing the world is crucial. And on that note, I'm leaving to Australia this weekend for a 2 weeks tour in Australia to go and talk to dozens of churches and communities to share exactly that. Even to Australia, the whole world to need to understand the reality we're living in. And thank God for Christian Friends of Israeli Communities and other organizations that are doing amazing work in sharing the reality of what we're doing here. I won't stop. I won't stop to say how much we appreciate that we have somebody that cares about what we are facing and that understand what we're going through, doesn't close his eyes, not brainwashed by the stupid social media and other outlets. No, that's what we can say. Thank for that and thank for having all those amazing support that we got. And you know what? Right now it looks like the cards are being dealt in the right way. Trump, as we start with, is gonna do not here, half of it, half of what he's claiming. And with the world or without the world, I think amazing things can happen. So, in that opportunity, I want to thank you all for joining us today. I assume we're going to meet in a month just before Purim or just after Purim, before Passover. I like those events, especially before Passover, because these are 9 o'clock meetings, and I tell my wife, I'm sorry, I cannot help you clean. I need to meet my friends. So I hope we're gonna have you need to do 3 of them the week before Passover. You don't understand. You don't understand what we're going through. Reminded of the slavery in Egypt. Yeah, yeah, that's the reality. I wish you all the
Um,
best, and don't forget, Katie, Kim, please send our Telegram here. We have a channel
Yes,
on Telegram where we post updates and just things that are happening here in the land, important things to
definitely.
know. And that's it. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
everyone, and we'll meet again. And
Yeah.
thank you for all the kind words and great questions.